What is up, my bros? I have a question that was sent over to me that I wanted to answer it for everybody. So the question is, can you damage your subwoofer by running less wattage to that subwoofer than what it's rated for? Well, the answer is yes and no. The reason why it is a yes is because whenever you have a smaller amplifier, you're really trying to overcompensate for not having the wattage. So you might not set the gains properly. Now, this is a very might not. If you're an experienced guy, then you're experienced gal, then you're okay. But if you are running clean wattage to that subwoofer and there's no distortion, I mean, you don't just think, you know that there's no distortion, you're not going to hurt the subwoofer. So if you're running a 1500 watt subwoofer on a 500 watt amplifier without any distortion, I mean, there's no distortion in sight, you're good to go. You got the proper box, all this other jazz. But whenever you have that smaller amplifier, it is going to run the risk of getting the gain set improperly because you're trying to overcompensate for not having the wattage. And let's just be honest, we all want to bang, right? A lot of times, whenever a subwoofer is underpowered, let's say you have a 1500 watt subwoofer and a 1500 watt amp. So you guys know that impedance rise and voltage drop and all these things come into play. So if your amplifier, let's say it's rated at 1500 watts at 1 ohm or hell, even half ohm, it doesn't matter what you're wired to, you're going to be wanting to give that full 1500 watts to that subwoofer. And you're going to be setting that amplifier that's 1500 watts all the way to the top of the gain or all the way to the most you can. But whenever you're maxing out an amplifier, you're going to be running into more opportunities to send the clip signal, distortion, and the wrong wattage to your subwoofers. So that's where you can damage your subwoofers. I was talking to a guy today, and he said that he had a shop tune his 1500 watt to his 1500 watt sub, and everything was good, but the amp was still running hot, and the subwoofer was still getting a little stinky. And it's one of those woofers that you can double the RMS. We all know about that shit. But what happens is you're wanting to get every bit of that 1500 watts out of the amplifier. And unless you are wired into the dirt or the amplifier is lower rated than what it says. There's, for an example, like the JP23, you guys know that it's a 2300 watt amplifier, but it does much more than that. And so that's okay. But a lot of amplifiers, 1500 watts is going to be around their max. And so when you're sending that max, you have your amplifier tuned up all the way. You've got every little trick in the book to make sure that you got all that power, and you ride the fine line of distortion and clipping on the top end of that amplifier. It doesn't matter. Even if you had a 1500 watt subwoofer with a 500 watt amplifier, you're going to be wanting that amplifier to just give it all the juice it has. And when you improperly tune the amplifier and you're giving every bit of that wattage, you run into the biggest risk of the clipping watts out of that amplifier. So if you were to want to give a full 1500 watts to your subwoofer, I always recommend to step up. Go to a higher amplifier because you're going to want to fight the impedance rise. You're going to want to fight the voltage drop. And if you have a larger amplifier, and let's say you have a 1500 watt subwoofer, and instead of getting a 1500 watt amplifier, you go for the 2500 watt amplifier. Whoa, that's going to overpower it. Well, you can back down a 2500 watt amplifier and keep that amplifier out of the clipping range, the distortion range. Most fine amplifiers have a clip light that, you see that light flicker and you're going to be sending, you can do a little soft clip. I mean, depends on who you ask. Some people are going to say, send it, brother, send it. Well, yes, send it because that's what's fun. But if you want longevity out of your equipment, then you want to run it in a safer range. If you're not sending distorted watts to the subwoofer, then that subwoofer or speaker is going to last much longer. And subwoofers nowadays, it depends on the brands. I'm not going to be picking on any brand. I'm not going to be talking about any brand in particular, but a lot of subwoofers nowadays are rated for a little bit lower than what it can actually take, because we know in the bass head community, we're going to turn that thing all the way up to the tippy top. And that's just the culture nowadays. So you just kind of have to roll with it. So yes, you can blow or ruin a subwoofer on a smaller amplifier because you're trying to make that smaller amplifier give every last bit of its power. And when you're doing that out of an amplifier, it is going to send some nasty wattage, nasty distorted wattage to that subwoofer, causing it to clip to death, more or less. So if you are running a smaller amplifier, and even if you're, and don't get defensive now, but even if you're just running a smaller amplifier because that's what you have until you can afford the bigger one, no problem. But please treat the smaller amplifier just like you're hooking it up to a 500 watt speaker. If it's a 500 watt amplifier, don't try to just max it all the way out, bass boost the shit out of it and all this other stuff. Give it some leeway, give it some leeway. So the answer to that question is yes, you can hurt the subwoofer, but if you're properly tuning the amplifier, you won't hurt the subwoofer by just sending it the 500 watts that it needs, or the 500 watts that you're giving it, even though it needs 1500 watts, as long as it's clean. The key to everything when it comes to longevity for your equipment is clean, distortion-free, all of that jazz. Now, how do we go distortion-free? Well, amplifiers give the most power in the higher voltages. So, well, not in the highest of voltages. Some of the amplifiers are not rated to go crazy high. But when you give your amplifier the power it needs to make the watts, it's running nice and cool, nice and calm, and it's just doing the job that it's supposed to do. But whenever you have incredible voltage drop, let's say you drop it down to 12, or even lower than that, 11, the amplifier, even if it's a 500 watt amplifier, you're not going to be getting all 500 watts out of it. So that's where the user or the person tuning, whomever it is going to crank that gain up on that amplifier, trying to overcompensate for the lack of wattage because of voltage drop or the impedance rise, all that jazz. So yes, you can hurt an amplifier. You can hurt a subwoofer by sending any clipped wattage. You could have a 2000 watt subwoofer on a 200 watt amp, and you clip that subwoofer to death, and you're thinking, well, why the hell? I spent so much money on this monster subwoofer. It should be able to take anything I throw at it. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be very resilient. It's going to be very, it's going to be tough, but sending the wrong wattage is just going to fry that bitch little by little over time. Now, when you're starting to deal with your higher wattages, like you have a 5,000 watt subwoofer with a 4,000 watt amplifier, that's going to happen a lot quicker because there's a lot more wattage in play, a lot more heat, a lot more distortion, a lot more to send to that subwoofer. So I hope that explains that question of can you blow a subwoofer on less power than what it's rated for? But just mind that distortion is what blows subwoofers whenever you're under the wattage range. And good, clean wattage, good, clean signal, and all that is so important no matter what size system you have. Well, I hope that answers your questions. And if on that topic, whether it be, and make sure to go check out Bangin' Bros over on Instagram. I got a bunch of links down below. If you need some high quality car audio equipment, use coupon code Bangin' Bros over all the sites listed below, including Down for Sound Shop, Showtime Electronics, CT Sounds, my boys over at Custom Speaker Pods, all the different places, Hump Audio. And if you're in Canada, go check out my boys at caraudiodirect.ca. They got the sauce if you're up north. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you found this video informative, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys.